Hi, my name's Tim Hanni, and I will be the course instructor for the new Wine Business Certificate series at Washington State University. And the purpose of this video is to give you a quick look at how the program will run, the syllabus, and the key elements of the course. So primarily, looking at the course overview, we've got a 6-week program, and one of the challenges, and I've been doing this for now 7 years, teaching online wine business courses, is that we'll have everything from complete newbies to the wine industry to people who are already running a successful or hopefully successful business and looking to optimize that, and kind of anywhere in between. So basically, what I've created over the years is a systematic approach using the wine supply chain and value chain to then look at independent areas of the wine business, and then how it kind of wraps up as the whole, and using online videos and training tools. So basically, to give a little overview of this, it's employing critical thinking so that if you're looking at grapes and viticulture, or different processes or options for fermentation and aging and barrel cellaring, we look at each of these components of the wine business in a critical way, from understanding the points of view of the different stakeholders in the industry. So when it comes to the business of grapes, marketing has its needs and requirements. The winemaker is looking for very specific elements from the grapes. The sales ultimately depends on all of these decisions and the costs. And then the final stakeholder is always the finance department, and that's not usually thought of in the equation when people are taught about wine. So we're trying to have people put aside their own personal preferences and passions and opinions for this course, so that you can then say, oh, if we were to look at this business from this point of view, this is what might be most important, and how we prioritize things and the strategies for our business. But from this point of view, it looks totally different. So as we go through the course, then we look at wine business strategic planning and understanding and defining the market, how you maximize returns to the needs you establish. And what's also fun about this is looking at it from a lifestyle standpoint, income generation, and then also what's your exit strategy, developing a business for sale or acquisition, or to keep in your family in perpetuity, whatever it is. All along the way, we're discussing how to understand risks and then mitigate those risks, how to keep the business sustainable over time, and then, as we talked about, in also maximizing return, what's your exit strategy or succession planning for the business. So the way that it's broken down systematically, as I mentioned before, is we start with the primary critical elements of quality versus cost, and starting with permits and licenses. What do you need to get into business? Grapes and the business of viticulture, real estate, equipment and supplies, location costs going through production, operations and admin, sales and marketing, through distribution options to point of sale, and finally the last piece of the puzzle, the most important, which is the consumer. Primarily then, this breaks down into the supply chain options. Your grapes, are you going to grow your own, or are you going to buy them? In production, what kind of model of production, and what are the options? Are you going to have the full production and all the equipment and the overhead and the expenses and the facilities, or are you going to use a facility and use contract or custom crush options? What's the bulk wine market? How does that work? What are opportunities there? All the way to shiners, buying wines that are fully made in the bottle, ready for a label and ready to go to market. Then we look at the different distribution options to get your product from the winery to the consumer's hands. The 3-tier system, account direct in states where that's legal, direct to consumer considerations, and then third-party online sales as a distribution channel. And then finally, your different point of sale options: on-premise, which are the restaurant bar licensees; off-premise, retail stores, that kind of things. And then the ever emerging and growing opportunities in online, wine club, internet, in your tasting room, and the consumer direct options. So that's basically how we run the course. And the cornerstone of the course is software that I've developed and used over many years. That's called the Wine Biz Sim, and I can give you a quick example of how that works. So what the Wine Biz Sim is, it's a winery financial planning and forecasting software that allows you to create projects, and the assignments for the participants in this course is going to be to complete a Wine Biz Sim project and then a corresponding business plan using a template that they receive, and that's their final project to get credit for the course. So the way that I set up the Wine Biz Sim, and we've refined this over many years, is you create a project and everybody will be working on a $15 Chardonnay as a group. Later on, they can create more projects or something very specific to their own business for the more advanced students. You start with a project overview, which is going to consist of how many cases you're producing as an entire winery, how many cases of the specific wine, in this case a $15 Chardonnay. And everybody at the outset will be working on the same project. And again, later people can then veer off to points of their own interest and so forth. Now, when you get all the numbers in, it populates what your bottle price is and your net income for the volume and type of wine you're producing. So we go through grapes and varietal choices, yield per acre, the value of appellation, and establishing where your pricing can land. And at the end of this part of the project, we establish a cost per ton of grapes. So, and that gets in also with considerations like grower's premium for sugar levels, all these kind of. For the newbie, this is really kind of cool because somebody can then say, well, what is a grower's premium? What are you even talking about? For those who do know, you can just kind of plug in numbers, and we provide a complete template, and there's also an online video tutorial so that people aren't expected to know these numbers, but the course brings up that these are important to know, that there's a cost associated with all these procedures and fermentation options and barrel aging and so forth. So we go through production and pre-fermentation of getting the grapes to the winery. We convert that into a cost per case of juice and start then in the processing of that. People can see how many tons they need for any given project. And then the costs associated prior to fermentation. We go through production, aging, and cellaring, the packaging options, and discussions about screw caps and corks and different closure types, different options other than glass even. Labeled information, what's required. Part of what we also do is send the students to the TTB site where there's just a wealth of information, and even you can download permits and forms and all that kind of stuff. Then through winery operations, allocation of production through various sales channels, from domestic 3-tier distribution, consumer direct in a tasting room, consumer direct internet or wine club, account direct, export, etc. We go through the marketing and sales expenses, establishing budgeting and what kinds of costs are associated with selling your product. And at the end of it, we come up with a complete breakdown of a cost per case recap. So people get an understanding of what it is to get your final cost of goods, your fully allocated cost of goods. And then we take that into distribution, establish pricing, look at the critical point of what the winery sells the product for versus its fully allocated cost of production, and then going through the wholesale distributor costs and markup and getting it to the retail point. We've got a tab for doing an export workup. We then look at the different margins and needs and expectations of stores and restaurants, how to set up your direct sales pricing for your wine clubs and so forth, and you end up with a profit and loss statement. And it breaks it down by each distribution channel. So that's what we do. At the end of this, everybody's got a project that they turn in. Throughout the course, we're just simply constantly going back to the Wine Biz Sim to discuss each segment through the syllabus. And then it allows us to establish step by step our course goals and the coursework in a way that also you go in and say, okay, if I were to make this decision, what then, how does that affect the quality of the product that I'm making, and how does it affect my profitability? So it's a very unique in bringing this real world understanding to the nuts and bolts of the wine business. And then as a final caveat, throughout the course, we're also looking at the wine businesses that support a wine business. So we're looking at compliance services, tax and accounting. We're looking at providers of equipment and these kind of things. The actual role in the business of distribution, of retail, of running a tasting room, of doing online sales and those kind of things. So it's really great. Again, with the structure of the Wine Biz Sim, it gives us that opportunity to connect to all those different areas. So hope you enjoyed this. It's a fun course. I have over 1,000 students that I've provided this for over the years, and really excited to be working with Washington State University. And thank you very much.